Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to head a little bit north in this review once again to Stockholm, the capital city, and we're going to have a look at another beer from a brewery you've seen me review many things from before. And these guys always do some really very quirky and very interesting beers, but today we've got one that I think is a little bit more straight shooting, but their straight shooting beers as well always tend to be pretty damn good actually. So for this one we are going to return to Omnipollo, and today we're having a taste of the Double Maz. So this beer comes in at 8.5% ABV. They're describing it as a double oat IPA, and this was released as part of the Tillfälligt sortiment through Systembolaget here in Sweden on the 15th December 2020. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. I think it should be another very interesting beer. The last beer that I reviewed from these guys was one of the Biancas, which turned out to be a really nice beer. I do enjoy those, you know, those are really just kind of crazy big thick fruity gozes. I do like those big massive fruity sours actually. I've had a lot of really good examples of those over the last little while, but the last IPA that I had from these guys was the Phantasmal, which was a collaboration with Stigbergers, and that was really very nice. That was a triple IPA, I think, a big 10%er or something like that. And then before that we had the dry hopped version of the Fata Morgana, which again was really quite good. I did have another really good Omnipollo IPA before that as well, come to think of it, but I can't remember the name of that one actually. But yeah, definitely nice to go back to having another IPA from these guys, and fingers crossed this turns out to be another really interesting beer. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Omnipollo. There are a good few there already, but fingers crossed we are going to get a few more of their beers out regularly again. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Omnipollo then, on to my brewery notes. So Omnipollo, as I've told you before, was founded back in 2011 by Henrik Fenty, who's a long-time home brewer, and also Carl Grandin, who is a clothing designer. So the two met one day and they just kind of decided to start a brewery after they discussed kind of how insular the craft beer scene in Sweden was, and also further afield. But they said that they wanted to reinvigorate the craft beer scene both from a kind of stylistic sense and from a gastronomic sense, which is the main reason you get all of these beers with the crazy adjuncts and flavour essences and stuff in them. So they felt that this partnership between a home brewer and a clothing designer was pretty logical. The name itself, Omnipollo, is derived from omnipotent chicken, so Omnipollo, pollo Spanish for chicken, and these guys were gypsy brewers until 2020. So they opened Omnipollo's Hat in Stockholm as a collaboration with Pizza Hut, and this has become a really little popular stop in the city. I've been there, but I do want to go back and film an out and about video for you at some stage. And they've also got many different beers on tap in there that you won't find otherwise in Sweden from Omnipollo. They've also got awesome pizza there as well. But in 2019 they also opened up another bar in Hamburg in Germany. They've got another bar in Gothenburg as well, and they've just opened up their bar in Tokyo in Japan too. And I think they are looking to open up more beyond that as well. But in March of 2020 they announced that they would open their own brewery at Sundbyberg, which is kind of to the northwest of the main central part of Stockholm, if I'm remembering rightly. I think, yeah, out to the northwest, and this had previously been home to Sundbyberg Köksbryggeri. So basically, this is an old church that they're going to kind of renovate. And I think work is well underway on that, but apparently the current brewing capacity of this place is around 100,000 litres, and when they've finished all of their kind of renovations and stuff that they're doing, this will take the capacity of this brewery up to 600,000 litres of beer per year quite soon. But yeah, as of December 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 335 different kinds of beer, and they are still brewing quite a number of beers as a gypsy brewery. I think quite a few of them are still being brewed at the De Proefbrouwerij in Lochristi Hefte in Ghent in Belgium. I think they brew quite a number of their stouts in Gothenburg at Dugges Brewery as well, and there are a few now being brewed over at Toril City over in the middle of Sjælland in Denmark, and this actually is relevant for this beer. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Omnipollo for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, this I think should be very, very interesting. So yeah, let's go forward with this review then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open up. From what I understand, this beer is basically designed to be the kind of big brother, big sister, whatever you want to say, of the regular Maz beer that they do, which is a lower alcohol OIP. I think it's about 5.5–6% if I remember rightly. I have seen it once before, but I've never actually managed to try it. But this one is just basically, you know, a double version of that. That seems to be quite a popular thing to do these days, is to brew double IPA versions of beers that you've done previously. I mean, OO Brewing did it with the Narangi actually, which was quite interesting. But yeah, this artwork on this one is typical of Omnipollo. They've always got some really interesting artwork, of course, and this is going to be one of the cans that messes with the camera. There you can see on the side the double Maz. 8.5% IPA, this one, OIPA, so it should be somewhat similar to a New England IPA. But yeah, 440ml can, this one. I paid 55 Swedish kronor for this. Had it been brewed in Sweden, I probably would have paid about 50, I would think. But this one, since it was brewed over at Toul in Denmark, I think you would pay the extra 10 kroners on that because it is produced abroad, basically, although very, very close. So yeah, this one was a little bit more, 55 kroners, but I mean, that works out at €5.50, about $6 American, and I guess, you know, £4. Yeah, like £4.50, £4.75, something like that if you want a price comparison. But yeah, 8.5% double O IPA, this one. I think this should be very interesting. So let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. So yeah, let's go for it. Ooh, this is quite a dark looking O IPA actually. But yeah, of course, one of the classic beers from Omnipollo, probably one of my two favourite ones, to be honest. I always like the Fata Morgana, and then you've got Nebuchadnezzar as well as the West Coast one. But yeah, Fata Morgana, from what I understand, was released before the whole New England IPA thing became a thing in Sweden. It was just described as an O IPA, so it wasn't technically, I guess, a New England IPA at that stage. But yeah, it was. That was one of the first kind of oat-based IPAs to make it to Sweden actually, which is quite interesting to think about. So yeah, Fata Morgana is a little bit of a classic Swedish craft beer as well. But yeah, I have to say I'm very impressed with the colour of this one. So as you could see, this beer poured with about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy coloured head, but that's faded away to just be a very kind of thin wispy foamy layer, and there's a lovely kind of big creamy ring around the edge of the glass there. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the surface of the beer there. But yeah, overall there's nothing particularly surprising about the appearance of this one when you consider that it is an oat IPA, and I guess it's quite close to New England IPA, but the colour is pretty damn rich in this one. But if we shine the light through this, this does have a hell of an opacity to it. This is a very, very kind of soupy and gloopy beer, this one actually. You do get a little bit of light through the beer at the surface, but there's some really, really very nice kind of big, thick sort of oaty just gloop to this beer. It looks almost quite soupy actually. But in terms of the colour, how would we say this? I think this is a really rich, more orangey leaning hazy IPA, this one. Yeah, it's definitely more. I do wonder if this is going to be really kind of brown sugary leaning as well actually. I think this could be very, very interesting. Remember, the two things that affect the colour of your beer are 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of the boil. So the longer you boil the beer, or the longer you boil the wort, sorry, the sugars caramelise a little bit more, and that gives you a darker colour. But it's also going to be dependent on what exact malt types you've used in there. So maybe this is a little bit of a combination. It could be a slightly longer boil, which I think usually you get for a double IPA anyway, but it could also be that there is some sort of brown sugar orientated barley malt in this one, but we'll maybe be able to figure something out about that when we actually taste the beer. But yeah, very, very rich and kind of orangey leaning colour, this one. I would kind of compare this to a sort of mixed tropical fruit juice actually. I always like comparing these hazy IPAs to different fruit juices. So yeah, this one is pretty much like a kind of big mixed tropical fruit juice actually. So yeah, the appearance of this one is pretty surprising actually in terms of its colour, but otherwise it's kind of what you would expect from an oat based kind of hazy IPA. But yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one then and just see how we get on. Ooh, that does smell pretty nice. You can tell it's pretty damn fresh as well actually. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't smell overly different from any other sort of I dare say, New England IPA. I do wonder if the fact that they're calling this an oat IPA is just because it's based on an older beer that they probably would have called an oat IPA back in the day. But yeah, the aroma out of this is pretty damn nice actually. So you get a lovely smoothness to the malt base in this one. You can smell a little bit of a pale malty quality, but you get lots of just smooth, oaty, almost sweet oaty characters coming out of it actually, which I think is really quite nice. But it also says it contains wheat, and that's what I was thinking about this beer. It does, when you take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, you do have a little bit of that wheaty bitiness to this one. So I guess in some way it probably is a New England IPA because it's got the wheat in there. So yeah, I think this is just a New England IPA, to be honest with you. But yeah, when you take the aroma and you do get a little bit of that bitey, wheaty note in there. There's some lovely smooth white bready characters. There's a little bit of a kind of smooth oaty quality, as I say, and you do get just a wee bit of that kind of Werther's Original kind of butter candy type thing out of the malt base in this one as well. So I've got a feeling that this beer might well have a good little bit of that kind of big sweet brown sugary quality to it, and I'm really curious to see how that turns out with this one. But yeah, if you compare this just to a regular New England IPA, and I'm going to assume from now on that that's what this beer is, it is, you know, pretty similar, but you do get a lot of smoothness out of this one and a nice kind of creamy element to it. So maybe it's just an oat heavy New England double IPA basically, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, more and more that you smell of this beer, you get a more brown sugary Werther's Originally type quality out of this one. So I do like how that goes together. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of things then with this one, yeah, you do get a little touch of earthiness out of this one. You can smell that there's a good bit of floral aromaticity to this, and I really think that this beer has a little bit of I think this beer does have a good little bit of dry hopping going on in there. You can really smell a little bit of a kind of you can smell a good bit of a kind of hazy, sort of dusty, dry hopped character, and you can really smell that coming out of this beer for sure. And it's quite fresh. You know, it takes a little bit of time for that to sort of mellow out of the beer, but we are having this one very fresh, just going by the aroma. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, quite a nice bright floral aromaticity. It does have a wee bit of spiciness to it because of the kind of dry hopping. I do wonder if there's a wee bit of Columbus in this as a bittering hop, because there is just a wee touch of that spiciness in there, but you also get a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy quality to this one as well. But I mean, overall it does come across as a really nice, just bright and floral aromatic IPA on the basis of the green side of things. But yeah, on the fruity side then, so for me there is a little bit of that kind of pungent passion fruit to this one. You're getting these kind of typical mango notes. I'm thinking that, you know, Citra is probably playing a role in here, because it does have those. There's just something familiar about this. It's quite I would say it is a bit of a tropical leaning New England IPA. At the same time though, you can smell a more kind of oily orangey note to this beer as well. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this beer is a Citra and Mosaic. I really wouldn't be surprised if this is a Citra Mosaic beer, because there is just something quite familiar about this actually, and if it's based on one of their older beers, it's probably one of the less wacky kind of hop combinations, I guess you could say, that would be in this. So I've got a feeling this might well just be, you know, a Citra and a Mosaic, something like that. There's some of the, you know, with the passion fruit that's coming out of this one, it does have a level of pungency to it. So maybe there could be a bit of Galaxy or something like that in this as well. But yeah, as I say, good bit of pungent passion fruit, a little bit of a kind of juicier mango in there. You get a few other little tropical complexities that you're always going to get, of course, then you get a nice kind of oily tangerine quality coming out of this one. But the aroma of this beer, I think, goes together really quite nicely, to be honest with you. It's very familiar, this one. It's not doing anything crazy in terms of its aroma. So just take a little bit of time to enjoy that before you get stuck in. But we're going to taste this beer now and just see how we get on. So yeah, this one is the Double Maz, an 8.5% double O IPA from Omnipollo, based in Sundbyberg, just in the northwestern part of Stockholm here in Sweden. But this beer, of course, brewed at Toro City in Svinninge, over in the middle of Zealand in Denmark. So yeah, let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that is a really very smooth and creamy and slick beer all in one. This one, this is all about the mouthfeel, this one. Definitely just going to say that about this beer. This one is all about the mouthfeel. Yeah, this is a very, very nice beer. So I'm just going to say straight away, thumbs up to Omnipollo for this one. The question would be, is this one of the best IPAs I've had from them? I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say so. And it's just the only reason I would say that is there are just other ones that have kind of struck me in ways. And I mean, this beer is really, really nicely done, and I really do quite like it. But I think personally, for me, I think the Fata Morgana and the Nebuchadnezzar, maybe it's just the fact that those are quite nostalgic beers for me. I really put those kind of up on a pedestal, and I suppose that's one of the things when it comes to a brewery that you've reviewed a lot of beers from over the years. Certain beers kind of go up on the pedestals because these were your first ones, and you can always compare to some of the other things that you've had. But yeah, the flavour kind of composition of this one is really quite nicely done. This, as I say, is a little bit of dirt inside the glass there. This one is a really very kind of straight shooting beer, and it's all about the mouthfeel for me. This has got a lovely creamy smoothness to it, so it gets a big thumbs up. It gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. Yeah. Very, very nice. So yeah, let's try and just break down the flavour of this beer then. It is, as I say, this isn't one of the quirkier beers you're going to get from Omnipollo, but I think it's really just well executed. And this is what I said to you, you know, these guys do some crazy things with adjuncts, but it is worth trying some of the more straight shooting beers, such as the Nebuchadnezzar and such as the Fata Morgana, because they do those really well as well, actually. And I know that some people kind of say, oh yeah, Omnipollo, it's not really kind of purist brewing and things like that. I think brewing with all these adjuncts and flavour essences and stuff is a bit of an art in itself, to be honest with you. But the thing that kind of warms me to them is that they can brew with straight up beers like this really well. So that is, that's what really warms me to Omnipollo. So yeah, I don't think, to be honest, I think the arguments that Omnipollo aren't a kind of purist brewery, for me that doesn't really add up so much, to be honest with you. I don't really buy into that argument, because I think that they do what they want to do. There's lots of other breweries doing the same. They've influenced quite a lot of people, but when they can brew straight up beers like this, for me that's what really counts. You know, these guys are very, very capable. I'd love to meet Henrik at some point, actually. It'd be cool to do an interview with him here on the channel, so we'll see about that sometime. But yeah, so straight away with this beer, right across the middle of your palate you get that lovely smooth white bready quality there. And if you go towards the back third of your palate, just you can feel that there's a more bitey, wheaty element to this beer. I mean, the back half of that back third of your tongue is all about the wheat and having a little bit more of a kind of bitey quality. But as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, that you can feel you've got that smooth, soft kind of white bready quality there, but you've got a big, thick, creamy oaty layer that just kind of dominates from the middle third of your palate back to halfway through the back third of your palate. That is the malt base in this one. That is it, pretty much. In the middle of your palate, you do get a nice little bit of a kind of brown sugary kind of butter candy sort of thing out of this one. There is a wee bit of that sort of Werther's Original kind of smoothness. coming out in the middle of the palate there. So I do wonder, is there maybe like a little bit of caramune-ish, or you know, something like this, or even just a little hint of caramel in this one? Because I think even if you did add caramel into the beer, the oiliness and the flavour that you would get from that would still be dominated by the oats, because I mean you can tell straight away with this beer from the mouthfeel and just the composition of the flavour. It's just a very, very oat heavy IPA. It's basically a very oat heavy New England IPA, to kind of put it bluntly. But yeah, in the middle of your palate there's definitely a little bit of that kind of Werther's Original presence to this one, and I think that works really, really well for this beer. But yeah, I really like how this goes together for sure. So yeah, there's not too much else, as I say, to report on the malty side of things. Big, you know, soft white bready, almost quite crisp white bready layer underneath, bit of a more bitey, wheaty quality on that back third of your tongue, and then a lovely big thick just oaty creaminess in the middle of the palate, and a bit of that Werther's Original kind of quality in the middle of the tongue, like I said. But on the hoppy side of things, in the back corners of the palate you do get a little touch of earthiness out of this one. As you move further forward from that, it does get kind of nice and big and floral and aromatic. There is a bit of spice to this one. I do wonder if there's a bit of Columbus in here as the bittering hop, because it does have a wee touch of that spice there, but I think the further you go into the aftertaste, that sort of dissipates away a little bit more in favour of just a kind of bright floral aromaticity. Round the front curve of the palate there's a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy thing to this one, and then on that front third of your palate you've got a nice you do get that nice kind of juicy oily bubble where those fruity juicy esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, on the fruity side of things, again, this is kind of what you'd expect, and it's quite similar to the aroma. This beer is one that really does kind of reflect its flavours in the taste that you you know, from the aromas that you would pick out when you're smelling the thing. But in the back, at the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a wee bit of a kind of slightly more pungent passion fruit out of the beer. Quite quickly when you move forward from that, you get more of a kind of mangoey quality to it, and then so it's quite nice in that sense. You do get that nice kind of soft mangoey quality to it, and then as you reach the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue, you get the more oily kind of you get the more oily sort of tangerine notes coming out of it. So that's really quite interesting for sure. I do think there is something that's telling me that this is you know, it's a bit of Citra, maybe a bit of Mosaic. From the flavour and from the fact that it's quite soft, I mean, the two hops that spring to mind would be Citra and maybe Victoria's Secret, because Victoria's Secret has a little bit of that. It has a little bit of that kind of softness to it, but at the same time it's got a bit of that slightly more pungent passion fruit as well. So that could be an option here, but considering the fact that this is based on a slightly older recipe, the Maz I think has been around for quite some time actually. It is one of the older beers that they do. I'm tempted to just say that this would likely be maybe Citra, and that this would be Citra and Mosaic in this one. I think that's maybe a fair bet with this beer. It could be there could be a bit of Simcoe or something like that in there as well, in fairness. But I think, yeah, I think it does. I think it is just a fairly straightforward kind of hop combination that's in this one. A little bit of Citra, a little bit of, maybe a little bit of Simcoe, and I think, you know, Mosaic in this one. As you go towards the kind of front edge of the palate, you do get a little bit of a slightly lemony sort of zest to the beer. Maybe slightly limey. There is just a little bit of zest on the kind of front edge of your tongue there. But overall, it's a really, really solid beer, this one. Just a very oat-heavy New England double IPA in my opinion. And this one is all about the mouthfeel and just the smoothness and creaminess of the beer. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, how would we describe this one? I would describe this beer as being, you know, I would describe it as being quite full-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth in this one. It's got a big, you know, kind of creamy mouthfeel. It does have a wee element of oiliness to it as well, which is quite interesting, and that really helps bring out the more kind of tangerine-y, orangey elements in the fruit in this one. So yeah, it does. It's a very thick, it's a very thick kind of creamy thing. But as I say, just on the front part of your palate in particular, it feels a little bit more kind of oily, to be honest. In terms of IBUs, I think this beer, it's quite a low IBU on this. I would say that this is 30 or 40 IBUs. It's in that region. It's quite a low bitterness double IPA in my mind, but as I say, the focus with this one should be on the oats. They've called it a double oat IPA, so yeah, you would want it, if you're focusing on the oats, you would want it to be a little bit less bitter. But yeah, malty base, like I said, is lovely and smooth. There's a hell of a lot of creaminess to this one. It's got a wee bit of a kind of brown sugary element in the middle of your palate too, and then you've got some nice kind of you do have some very nice kind of just juicy, fruity qualities to this one, but there is a little bit of oiliness from the orangey side of things in there as well. But yeah, I think this is a really, really solid double IPA. I really like this one. As I say, this is not one of the more quirky beers that you're going to find from Omnipollo. This is definitely one of their more kind of straight shooting efforts, if you can term it as such. But yeah, it's a nice kind of change of pace, if you like, and it is nice to try something a little bit more straight shooting from Omnipollo as well. And they're very capable when they kind of look at when they do this side of brewing, actually. So thumbs up to Omnipollo for this beer. This is another very, very nice one. So yeah, I'm curious to see how many more beers they're going to produce at Toll City over in Denmark, and maybe this means that we are going to get a few more IPAs and things from them recently, because it seems that Toll are focusing on these kind of New England hazy sort of things, so maybe we'll see a little bit of that. But I would love to see Omnipollo release a couple of black IPAs. I don't think I've ever had a black IPA from Omnipollo, come to think of. I would love to see these guys do a couple of things like, Doppelbox and a couple of Doppelbox, a black IPA, a Scotch ale from Omnipollo would be really interesting. But I'd love to see these guys do a kind of series of classic styles of beer. That would be a really interesting thing from them. But in the meantime, we've had this really nice kind of oat forward New England double IPA, and I think they've done an awesome job in this. So Omnipollo, get a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Double Maz, an 8.5% double oat IPA, as they're calling it, coming in at 8.5% ABV. Beautifully done beer, this one. One of their more old school recipes, I guess you could say, that's been kind of amped up a little bit, and quite an old school, almost nostalgic beer, if you like. One of their more straight shooting efforts, but it comes across really nicely, and I would recommend that you try this if you get the chance. Otherwise, if you come across the Fata Morgana or the Nebuchadnezzar, or indeed one of those big kind of cakey Imperial stouts, they do the Yellow Belly or the Noah. I don't know if it's called Aeon or if they changed it back, but whatever. Those are the 4 beers that I would really recommend you try from these guys. But if you see this one, definitely worth a go, because you will get a really nice, enjoyable beer out of this one. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Omnipollo. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point fairly soon. Hopefully they release more beers in next year in 2021. But in the meantime, this one was the Double Maz 8.5% double oat IPA from Omnipollo, based in Sundbyberg in Stockholm here in Sweden. Until the next time, Slanja just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slanja, skull, cheers, catch you guys very soon.